You got the degree, landed the job, bought the car on finance, moved into a nice apartment. Maybe you're even saving a little each month and you think you're doing everything right. So why does it feel like you're working harder than ever just to stay in place? Why does every raise seem to disappear into new expenses? Why does financial freedom feel further away now than it did 5 years ago? Here's what nobody tells you. The very things we're told lead to middle-class success. The steady job, the manageable debt, the lifestyle upgrades, these are often the same things that trap us there. Not because you're bad with money, not because you're not working hard enough, but because the entire system is designed to keep you comfortable enough to stay but never wealthy enough to leave. What if everything you were taught about building wealth, go to college, get a good job, buy a house, save for retirement, what if all of that was designed to keep you running on a treadmill that looks like progress but never actually gets you anywhere? Think about it for a second. Your parents probably told you that education was the key to success, that a steady job with benefits was the dream, that owning a home was the ultimate goal. And you followed that advice, didn't you? You did everything right, checked every box, and yet here you are, maybe 10 years into your career, earning more than you ever thought you would, and somehow still feeling like you're barely keeping your head above water. The credit cards have balances you can't quite pay off. The student loans are still there. The car payment is automatic. The mortgage or rent takes a huge chunk. And at the end of the month, there's not much left. You tell yourself next year will be different. The next raise will be the one that finally gives you breathing room. But deep down, you're starting to suspect that something is fundamentally wrong with this picture. By the end of this video, you'll understand the invisible mechanisms that keep millions of middle-class people stuck in place, running faster and faster just to stay in the same spot. And more importantly, you'll know exactly what you can do about it. Isn't another budgeting lecture telling you to skip lattes? And this isn't a get-rich-quick scheme promising you'll be a millionaire in 6 months. This is about understanding the game that's being played with your time, your money, and your future, and how to stop playing by rules that were designed to keep you exactly where you are. Before we dive in, let me tell you why this matters to me personally and why I'm almost certain it matters to you too. I spent years doing everything I was supposed to do, checking all the boxes, climbing the ladder, and I kept waiting for that moment when I'd finally feel secure, when I'd finally feel like I was getting ahead and could relax a little. But that moment never came. And maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about. Every promotion brought new expenses that seemed to materialize out of nowhere. Every raise somehow disappeared into the general cost of living. And I realized I was trapped in what looked like success from the outside, but felt like a cage from the inside. The turning point came when I stopped asking the questions I'd been taught to ask, questions like, how do I earn more or how do I budget better? And started asking completely different questions. Why does earning more never seem to be enough? Why do I need to budget so carefully despite having a good income? And who actually benefits from me living this way? That's when I discovered these traps. And once you see them, you genuinely cannot unsee them. And your entire relationship with money and work changes forever. Now, when I talk about middle class in this video, I'm not talking about a specific income number because middle class means different things in different cities and different countries. What I mean is this specific situation. You earn enough to be comfortable. You're not struggling to put food on the table. You can afford some luxuries. Maybe you take a vacation once a year. You probably own a car. You might own a home or you're working toward it, but you're not building real wealth. You're living paycheck to paycheck despite that decent income, or maybe you've got a few months of savings, but nothing that would let you stop working for any extended period of time. Your one major emergency, one serious illness, one job loss, away from serious financial stress, and deep down you know that if you stopped working tomorrow, everything would fall apart within 3 to 6 months at most. That's the modern middle class, comfortable but stuck, secure but not free, and there are millions of us living this exact reality right now. We're the people who did everything we were told to do. We went to school, we got jobs, we're responsible with money, and yet financial freedom seems like something that happens to other people, not to us. Here's what this video isn't about, and I want to be crystal clear on this. This isn't me telling you to stop buying coffee or cancel Netflix or shame you for wanting nice things or enjoying your life. Life is short and you deserve to enjoy it. This also isn't about personal failure or bad choices, because the truth is, most of us are making perfectly rational decisions within a system that's designed to produce exactly this outcome. You're not broken. You're not bad with money. You're not lazy or unmotivated. This is about understanding the systemic patterns, the invisible architecture of middle-class life that channels your energy and resources in very specific directions, directions that benefit other people far more than they benefit you. Let's talk about the first trap. And this one is so insidious because it feels like success while it's actually keeping you stuck. It's called lifestyle inflation, and here's how it works. You get a raise. Let's say you go from making $50,000 a year to $60,000 a year. That's $10,000 more dollars. And in the moment you get that news, you feel amazing. You feel like you've made it, like your hard work is finally paying off. You celebrate. Maybe you go out to a nice dinner and you start thinking about what you can do with this extra money. Maybe you've been driving an old car and you think, well, now I can finally afford a nicer one. I deserve it after all this hard work. Or maybe your apartment is feeling cramped and you think, I can finally upgrade to that nicer place I've had my eye on. Or maybe you just start relaxing your budget a little bit, ordering takeout more often, buying nicer clothes, taking better vacations, subscribing to a few more services. And here's the thing. None of these decisions are wrong in isolation. You do deserve nice things. You do work hard. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying the fruits of your labor. But here's what happens. And I want you to really think about whether this has happened to you. Within 6 months to a year of getting that raise, your new lifestyle has expanded to match your new income. And you're back to feeling exactly the same financial pressure you felt before. You're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher income level. And somehow you have even less savings than you expected because everything just costs more now. The car payment is higher, the rent is higher, the restaurants you go to are nicer and more expensive, your wardrobe expectations have changed, your vacation standards have changed, and suddenly that extra $10,000 a year has completely vanished into your new normal. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's a trap because it keeps your expenses rising in lockstep with your income, which means you never actually get ahead. You just maintain the same relative position at a higher absolute cost. And here's why this is so dangerous. Every time you inflate your lifestyle, you're not just spending more money, you're creating new baseline expectations that are very difficult to roll back. Once you've gotten used to the nicer apartment, going back to the smaller one feels like failure. Once you've gotten used to the nicer car, driving an older one feels like you're going backwards. Once you've gotten used to eating out regularly, cooking at home every night feels like deprivation. You've created a new normal that requires your new income level just to maintain, which means you're now trapped by your own lifestyle. And this is exactly where the system wants you. Think about who benefits from lifestyle inflation. Car companies benefit when you upgrade your car every few years instead of driving one for 10 or 15 years. Real estate companies and landlords benefit when you constantly move to bigger and nicer places. Restaurants benefit when you eat out regularly. Retailers benefit when you constantly update your wardrobe. Streaming services, subscription boxes, premium gym memberships, all of these industries depend on middle-class consumers who have enough money to afford regular upgrades, but not enough wealth to stop participating in the consumption economy. You are the target market. And lifestyle inflation is the mechanism that keeps you in that market forever. Let me show you the math that absolutely shocked me when I first ran these numbers, because this is what really opened my eyes to how lifestyle inflation keeps you trapped. Let's take two people. We'll call them person A and person B, and they both start out making $50,000 a year. They both work hard. They both get similar raises over the next 10 years, and after a decade, they're both making $75,000 a year. But here's where they differ. Person A practices lifestyle inflation, meaning every time they get a raise, Their spending increases to match their new income. They upgrade their car. They move to a nicer place. They increase their discretionary spending. Person B, on the other hand, makes a different choice. When they get raises, they keep their lifestyle relatively stable at around $50,000 a year, and they invest or save the difference. Now let's look at where they end up after 10 years. Person A is making $75,000 and spending $75,000, which means they're saving essentially nothing. Maybe they've got a small emergency fund, but nothing substantial, and they're still living paycheck to paycheck, just at a higher income level. They've probably accumulated some assets like a nicer car, but those are depreciating assets that cost them money to maintain. Person B is making $75,000 but still living on $50,000, which means they're saving or investing $25,000 per year. If they've been consistently saving the difference between their lifestyle and their income over those 10 years, and if they're investing it even conservatively, they've probably accumulated somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 in assets, depending on returns and how aggressively they saved in the early years. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Person A feels like they need their $75,000 job. They can't afford to take risks. They can't afford to try something new. They can't afford to take a sabbatical or pursue a passion project because their entire lifestyle depends on that income. They're trapped by their own success. Person B, on the other hand, has options. With $200,000 to $300,000 in assets, they could take a year off work if they wanted. They could start a business. They could take a lower paying job doing something they're passionate about. They could negotiate harder with their employer because they have a cushion. This is the difference between being comfortable and being free. And it all comes down to keeping your lifestyle from inflating with your income. The trap isn't making money. The trap is spending everything you make. And here's the really painful part. Person A probably thinks they're doing better than person B because they have the nicer apartment, the nicer car, the better vacations, all the visible markers of success. Person B might even feel a little bit like they're missing out, like they're depriving themselves while their peers are living it up. But person B has something person A doesn't have: freedom, options, and the ability to make choices based on what they want rather than what they need to maintain their lifestyle. This is why lifestyle inflation is a trap. It trades long-term freedom for short-term comfort, and by the time you realize what you've given up, you're so committed to your expensive lifestyle that going back feels impossible. Now let's talk about the second trap. And this one is even more fundamental to understanding why the middle class stays middle class. It's the time for money trap. Here's what I mean. The entire middle class economic model is built on you trading your time directly for money. You get a job, you work 40 hours a week, maybe 50 or 60 if you're ambitious, and you get paid for those hours, either as an hourly wage or as a salary that's essentially an hourly wage in disguise. And this seems totally normal, right? This is how most people make money. This is how the economy works. You put in your time and you get paid. But here's the trap. Your income is fundamentally limited by the number of hours you can work. And there are only so many hours in a day, only so many days in a week, only so much energy you have. If you want to earn more money, you have to work more hours. And there's a hard ceiling on how much you can possibly earn because you cannot create more time. Let's say you make $30 an hour and you work 40 hours a week. That's 52 weeks a year minus some vacations. So let's say 50 weeks, which means you're making $60,000 a year. If you want to make $90,000 a year, you need to either work 60 hours a week, which is unsustainable and will burn you out, or you need to get your hourly rate up to $45, which probably means more education, more experience, more years of grinding. And even if you do that, even if you get to $45 an hour, you're still trapped in the same model. You're still trading time for money. You're still limited by hours. And the moment you stop working, your income stops immediately. This is what makes middle-class life so precarious. Your entire financial existence depends on your continued ability to show up and trade your time for money. And if anything interrupts that, illness, injury, job loss, family emergency, burnout, your income disappears. Now let me show you how wealthy people think about this completely differently. And this is the key insight that changed everything for me. Wealthy people don't primarily make money by trading time for dollars. They make money by owning things that generate income, businesses, real estate, investments, intellectual property, systems that work without them. If you own a business and you have employees, you're making money from their time, not just your own, which means your income is not limited by your personal hours. If you own rental properties, you're making money while you sleep because people are paying you to use your asset. If you own stocks in companies, you're making money from the profits those companies generate without you having to do anything. If you create something once, like a book or a course or software, and sell it repeatedly, you've decoupled your income from your time. This is leverage, this is scalability, and this is how people build real wealth. The middle class trap is that we're taught to optimize our time for money exchange rate, get more education to earn a higher salary, work harder to get promoted, switch jobs to get bigger raises, but we're never taught to break out of the time for money model entirely. And the system loves this because it creates predictable, reliable workers who have to keep showing up because they have no other choice. Let me tell you about something called the Golden Handcuffs. And this is where the time for money trap gets really insidious. The Golden Handcuffs are all the benefits and security that come with a good middle class job: the steady paycheck, the health insurance, the retirement matching, the paid vacation, the job security, maybe stock options or bonuses. These things are genuinely valuable. I'm not dismissing them, but they're also handcuffs because they make it feel incredibly risky and foolish to ever leave or to try something different. Let's say you've got a job making $80,000 a year with good benefits, and you've been there for 5 years, you've built up some seniority, you're comfortable, your boss likes you, you know how everything works. Now let's say you have an idea for a business, or you want to try freelancing, or you want to pursue something creative, or you just want to take a year off to figure out what you actually want to do with your life. The rational part of your brain immediately starts screaming at you. What about health insurance? What about the steady paycheck? What about retirement? What if it doesn't work out? What if you're making a huge mistake? And so you stay and you tell yourself you'll do it later, when you have more savings, when you're more secure, when the timing is better. But here's the trap. The timing never gets better. You never feel secure enough because the more you earn, the more your lifestyle inflates and the more golden handcuffs you accumulate. You're now used to that $80,000 lifestyle, and the thought of going back to making 40 or 50,000 while you build something new feels impossible. You've got the mortgage or the high rent, you've got the car payment, you've got all the subscription services and the lifestyle expenses, and you need that $80,000 just to maintain your current life. So you stay in the job, even if you're not passionate about it, even if it's slowly draining your soul, even if you know deep down that you're capable of more, because the golden handcuffs have you locked in place. And this is exactly how the system is designed to work: give people just enough comfort and security that leaving feels too risky, but not enough real wealth that they could afford to stop working. Keep them comfortable but dependent, secure but trapped, and they'll keep showing up, keep trading their time for money, keep being reliable cogs in the machine. The really cruel part is that we're taught to see this as success. We're taught that landing a job with good benefits is winning, that job security is the goal, and in many ways it is better than having no job or having a terrible job. But it's not freedom, it's not wealth, and it's not what we think it is. It's a very comfortable trap. And the more comfortable it gets, the harder it is to leave. The question you have to ask yourself is, am I building toward freedom, or am I building a more comfortable cage? Because there's a big difference. And most middle-class people spend their entire careers building a cage that gets more comfortable every year but never stops being a cage. Now let's talk about the third trap, and this is the one that really locks everything else in place: the debt as lifestyle trap. Here's how it works. We're sold the idea that there's such a thing as good debt, debt that helps you build wealth or advance your life. And in theory, that's true. But in practice, what gets sold to the middle class as good debt is actually a trap that creates monthly obligations you can never escape. Let's start with student loans, because for most middle class people, this is where the trap begins. You're told you need a college degree to get a good job, and college costs tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. So you take out loans because you're investing in your future, right? You graduate with $40,000 or $80,000 or $120,000 in debt. And now you have a monthly payment for the next 10 or 20 years. That monthly payment might be $300, it might be $500, it might be $1,000, but whatever it is, it's money you have to earn every single month just to service debt from your past. Then you need a car to get to your job, and cars are expensive, so you finance it because everyone has a car payment, right? That's another $300 or $400 or $500 a month. Then you're told that rent is throwing money away, that you should buy a house because it's an investment. So you get a mortgage that pushes your budget to the limit because you want to buy as much house as you can afford. And now you've got a mortgage payment that's $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month. Then you've got credit cards for emergencies and for convenience. And maybe you carry a balance sometimes because life is expensive and unexpected things come up. And that's another few $100s a month in minimum payments and interest. Add it all up, and you might have $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 in monthly debt obligations before you even get to food, utilities, transportation costs, and everything else you need to live. This is what I call the freedom cost, the amount of money you have to earn every single month just to service your debts and obligations. And here's the trap. Every one of these debt obligations requires you to keep earning money, which means you cannot afford to take risks. You cannot afford to quit a job you hate. You cannot afford to start a business that might not make money right away. You cannot afford to take time off. You cannot afford to do anything that might interrupt your income, because if your income stops, you default on all these obligations and your life falls apart. You're trapped by your own debt into needing a steady paycheck, which means you're trapped in the time for money model, which means you can never build real wealth. And the system loves this because people with high monthly obligations are reliable. They have to show up. They have to keep working. They can't rock the boat. They can't negotiate too hard. They can't threaten to leave because they need that paycheck to service their debts. So let's bring this all together, because I know this has been heavy and maybe a little bit depressing, but I promise there's a way out. And awareness is the first and most important step. The middle class trap isn't about your income level. It's not about whether you make $50,000 or $100,000 or $150,000 a year. The trap is the consumption patterns that inflate with your income, the time for money model that limits your earning potential to your available hours, and the debt obligations that lock you into needing a steady paycheck. These three things work together to create a situation where you can be earning a very good income and still feel trapped, still feel like you're barely getting by, still feel like financial freedom is impossibly far away. And here's the empowering truth that I want to leave you with. Once you see the trap, once you understand how it works and why it exists, you can start making different choices. You can decide that the next time you get a raise, you're not going to inflate your lifestyle. You're going to widen the gap between what you earn and what you spend, and you're going to save or invest that difference. You can start asking yourself before every purchase, does this buy me more time? Does this generate income? Does this move me toward freedom? Or does this just make my cage more comfortable? You can start thinking about how to break out of the time for money model, even if it's just in small ways at first, maybe a side business, maybe investments, maybe building a skill that could eventually be monetized independently. You can get ruthless about debt and start paying it down aggressively, because every dollar of debt you eliminate is a dollar of freedom you buy back. None of this is easy and none of this happens overnight, but it is possible. And the first step is simply deciding that you're going to prioritize freedom over comfort, that you're going to play a different game than the one you were taught to play. I want you to do something this week, just one thing. Calculate your actual monthly obligations, all your debt payments, all your fixed expenses, everything you have to pay every month, no matter what. That number is your freedom cost. That's how much money you need to earn every single month just to keep your current life running. Look at that number and ask yourself, how does it feel? Does it feel manageable or does it feel suffocating? Is it going up or going down? And most importantly, what would it take to cut that number in half? Because the lower that number is, the more freedom you have, the more options you have, the more you can make decisions based on what you want rather than what you need. The middle class life isn't bad. I want to be clear about that. It's comfortable and it's secure, and there's nothing wrong with it if it's genuinely what you want. But if you're feeling trapped, if you're feeling like you're working harder every year just to stay in place, if you're feeling like financial freedom is something that happens to other people, then you need to understand that you're not broken. The system is working exactly as it was designed. The question is, Are you going to keep playing by rules that were designed to keep you exactly where you are, or are you going to start writing your own rules? Thank you for watching. I know this was a lot. And if this resonated with you, please hit that subscribe button, because I make videos like this every week about money, freedom, and building a life that's actually yours. Drop a comment below and tell me which trap resonates most with you. Is it lifestyle inflation, the time for money model, or the debt trap? Because I read every comment and I want to know what you're struggling with. And remember, awareness is power. You can't change what you don't see, but now that you see it, everything changes. I'll see you in the next video.